Good morning, everybody. Why don't we go ahead and get started? I see a lot of faces on this call, so it looks like the calendar invite that I sent around worked for most of you. But if for some reason you didn't get it, something's not working, or you hear through the grapevine that somebody got left off, please let us know and we will work to get things forward to get people on the correct lists and all of that. This invite going forward should be set up for every other week, as we discussed in April. And we will, I think we'll probably have to talk about a few of those in particular. I think we've got one like the 27th. So if people are of December, so if people are going to be around after Christmas and all of that, we can discuss moving or canceling at that point. So really all we had on the agenda for today, we had a lot of speakers joining us in February and March. We had spent a few meetings in that time talking about some of SRPC's ongoing economic development planning. We just sort of wanted to give you all an opportunity to reset and talk to each other and maybe show off some of the things that you're working on or that's going on in your communities. So I can still be here for the herding of the cats, so to speak, but we're hoping that a lot of today's content is going to come from all of you. So is anybody working on anything you're super excited about that you want to share?
I can ask about what's going on with other folks with the $100 million invest in New Hampshire. If they submitted to the executive counselors, they've talked to them, talked to the developers, talked to their businesses, and wondering if anybody else has put stuff in.
Well, I'm curious too, Darren, with that letter that we worked on cooperatively, did all of our signatures appear on it? Did we sign it collectively?
No, I was hoping that would go from each. So what I do is I did what I said I was going to do. I got Nick to write it, had you guys edit it. I did the final edit, got it to Taylor. Taylor wrote back, don't change a word, get it out. I sent it to developers in my area and businesses that I wanted to sign on, including Sig Sauer, Eric Chinberg, Hospital, etc. And I submitted it to all of the counselors. And I did speak to, and several times with my counselor, Janet Stevens, who, by the way, sent a big thing out saying, I fully support this and we need to make this happen. She was the one lone vote for. And I talked to Tom Monahan, who agreed to call 2 other executive counselors. And I also sent that letter to all of the contacts at through BEA, the other seaters. I have no idea who's done anything else, if anything got submitted. And that's why I was asking. I think all of us should submit something to whatever counselor or all the counselors. That's what we should be doing. Teresa said that she was working with one of the other seaters to try to get stuff in.
So individual letters versus a collective letter is what?
Well, a letter coming from you with your businesses and your developers that agree to sign on. That's what we had discussed. I was hoping you get Chad Cadulary, among others.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sorry, I've been out for a week. I had flat on my back in bed with a terrible reaction to the last booster, so I've missed all this, but I will get back on that today. And I have not said anything because I thought it was going to be a collective, but okay, I get it.
They vote at 10 o'clock, on 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock on Wednesday.
I have a question about that because I didn't get an invite to whatever meeting or, I didn't know that a few of you were meeting to discuss putting a letter together, which means it also didn't go out to the full mailing list of people who join this call. So I think if there are things that are going to go through, I understand there might be times where there are different things that go just through economic development directors versus what goes through everybody who joins these calls. But it would help to at least keep us in the loop so we know whether that's something for a full list or not. And I think Robin's question about format sort of reflects how we've done those previously where we had written a single letter that would have gone through this group, pushed it out to the whole mailing list, and then I add the signatures for whoever says, yes, please add me.
So James,
Yep.
I sent the invite, and I apologize because I did include you, but my Outlook defaulted to your city email.
Of course it did.
Your SRPC email. So theoretically you were invited, but really you weren't. So that's my bad about that meeting because I organized it. I will figure out a way to tell Outlook that there's two of you, and then correct that if we do something in the future. That said, to Darren's question, I got back yesterday from being out of town. I did send it. I have a 1 o'clock appointment with Councilor Warmington today to discuss it. She called last week while I was out of town, and we set up today's meeting. And then Robin, I did talk to Chad yesterday in a meeting and asked him if he would reach out, and he said that you had talked briefly before, but not about a letter. So I'm going to get him this letter today, and he's going to sign it.
Okay, so I guess
he said that he spoke to the governor at a event a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and told him he has 1,000 acres in Stratford County he wants to build homes on, and the governor said, great, let me give you $100 million to do that. To which I said, yeah, but not all your land is residential, so don't plan on doing it. And then, but he said that he's very supportive and will pass the word along. So I'll coordinate.
Taylor sent a great email. I don't know if he sent it to everyone that explained it better. And I sent it.
He said he had seen that.
To Chad.
Can I ask you a question?
He really appreciated it.
Can I ask a question?
I guess for me, sure.
Warren, what's your question?
So can we get to more of a 10,000-foot view of this, because I'm going to I'm not going to take this from an economic development point of view, because I'm not an economic development professional. I'm going to take this from a small business point of view. So there's $100 million, and I didn't see any mention of anything relative to affordable housing. So we've identified a problem, one of 4 major problems for businesses moving forward. One of them is affordable housing. So if there's no affordable housing in this $100 million, and this is my understanding, maybe I'm wrong, and developers are just charged with developing property at market rate, how is that addressing our business problem?
I can address that. So a couple things. One of the things that the executive counselors did bring up was they wanted a definition of affordable. What we don't know from our seats is, did the BEA change with this second bite, or when they go back to answer the questions on Wednesday? We don't know what BEA is going to say. Mikhail may well know. We don't. And I'll let him address that. The other thing is Taylor's point in not putting affordable as part of it initially is that because the money has to be expended by 2024, he doesn't know if there's enough affordable projects already queued up that they'd be able to get all that money out. That was his point. And so we'll see what happens on Wednesday.
But how can you all, with all due respect to economic development, because you guys do a great job, how can you support something if you don't know that it's going to help businesses in the area? Well, I believe if they're going to be market rate housing at $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, how is that helping small businesses? And how can you support it if you don't know?
Right. Here's what I think about that. Obviously, any housing will be good. Certainly, affordable housing would be better. And when Taylor asked us to weigh in, because recall he did that, even set up a site for us to weigh in on. I put down it should be 15% affordable housing in order to do it. That's not the way BEA went with it, but that's what we suggested. At least I suggested.
So. But still, there's a support among this group. My point is, there's a support, what I'm viewing as a blind support among this group, because you don't know if there's any support affordable housing in $100 million.
I think just to hop in here real quick, Stephanie just dropped in a couple of links. There were some clarifications yesterday that came out that people can take a look at that does put a specific requirement on it.
What is it?
It is let me pull it up, make sure I get it right. I don't know if Stephanie, whether you know it off the top of your head here. I think it was rent for 80% average median income, family of 3, for a minimum of 5 years. And you have to have a minimum of 20% of project units are reserved for people with limited income as defined by the permitting
There
municipality.
we go.
Rent restrictions must be in place for at least 5 years. And then there's a differentiator between whether it's 15 units or fewer, or 15 units or larger.
And that's what the BEA put out?
BA put that out yesterday.
That's fantastic. There you go, Lauren.
There was the first thing that I put in the chat was a release it was a press release from the governor's office. And I guess I am interpreting that as what BEA's and the governor's office response was to the last executive counselor meeting, where they are providing a little bit more information, because I guess the big rub was there was no guardrails for affordable housing, criteria.
You mean government's
So
actually working?
I'm sharing as much as I became aware of, and that's why it's in the chat. And then there's just another little follow-up article from the New Hampshire Bulletin about what other kinds of bills that are being proposed to be stuck in with SB 400 at this time, just as an update, as the latest that I've been aware of what's going on with it.
Wow, great.
In terms, so thank you, that's very helpful to me, but in terms to a process, and it may be unique to me, and I appreciate that if it doesn't work and or isn't appropriate for everyone else. And Darren, by the way, thanks so much for all your good work with this. I think this is phenomenal. For me to get any, by the way, Ben Stebbins Condor has sent his own letter from the Stebbins family and from Condor Investment as well, and Chad is, Chris also said, but for me here, it works much better for me if I can sign a cooperative letter or have my name on a cooperative letter than me being out talking to counselors. I'm not even, it is not protocol here for me to even have a conversation with a counselor. So I am happy, would be very excited to lend Summersworth's report. My director completely supports that, but me going out and talking to counselors and obtaining specific support, A, I don't have the time, and B, it's not protocol here to talk to our city councilors or any elected officials. It turns into a policy that goes into the city manager.
We're talking about executive counselors, your executive counselors.
Oh, executive counselors. Gotcha.
And by the way, just for credit where credit's due, it was Chris's idea to put forth this effort, and it was Nick who wrote the initial letter.
Yeah.
And did so in about 15 minutes, which was awesome.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Chris. But
So I guess for everybody else on the call then, is it okay if I take that letter and forward it around to the whole list so anybody else who's interested can, read it, adapt it, send off their own?
yeah, and James,
version?
Do a
James-
collective letter, James. Feel free to do a collective, put my name on it, put all our names on it, if you agree. If that's what Robin wants to do, it's not gonna hurt.
yeah, true.
Okay, then I will take a look at that. If you're all sending them individually, that's great, but I will also take a look at whether or how to adapt that. And I'll do the usual, send it around for signatures from whoever gives me an explicit yes.
James, I'm giving you explicit yes right now. I trust you, I have confidence, and not worry. Just put my name on it, put Summersworth's name on it. We support it.
Sounds good.
And
Just
James,
send me a copy if you would.
Oh, sorry. So the reason that Chris sort of put this together was, I believe anyway, let him say it, but it was his idea, which is great. It was great. And the notion that get the developers and get the businesses on there, because they don't care that Darren Winham thinks this is a good idea. They care that Sig Sauer thinks it's a good idea.
Exactly.
Eric Chimber thinks it's a good idea. That's why we did it this way.
Yeah, agreed.
Plus, I don't
understand.
contribute to their campaigns and
You're
guys do.
absolutely right.
Mike?
Yeah, so I was assigned Counselor Kenny, District 1 is to get some info from him, and because it looks like he is going to become my executive counselor, and I think Robin's too, with the redistricting. So he was down here on Friday, we took a walkabout, and then we had a meeting, and he laid out exactly what they're concerned about in this thing. Because, if you watch the meeting, they're very concerned that this hasn't been fleshed out. There's not details. There's accountability issues.
That
There's
was
also-
Chad's initial concern, yeah.
So, I mean, this thing's pretty far from getting approval from the EC. It needs to, Taylor's gonna have to do a job of selling it. And they know when he's just selling as opposed to presenting. So, I mean, this thing needs to be, it's gonna have to have some tweaking, some fine tuning before they approve it. He wasn't at all, he loves it. He loves the idea of it. He just says, but we are not willing to pass this until it has some significant changes to it. They got to get in there. and do that.
Do we know what those changes are besides the article that was put out?
He kind of generally just went over I think there was an accountability and there was a management question and things like, there were a number of different major issues that he kind of went over very quickly. But he's
say
open to meeting with us.
Well, and I guess my question that I had thought from when Taylor discussed that previously on his briefings, that first step was get executive council's approval for the program to exist, then develop the regulations for exactly how the program will work, then confirm those, then launch it. Is it the other way around? Is he supposed to have the full proposal?
I think
for
that's
how
what they're
this is gonna
angling
work
towards
now?
now. Yeah, I mean, from what Joe was saying, it seems like they want to see something. If they're going to approve this, they want to see some detail. It may not have to be the fully fleshed out program, but at least enough that they can feel comfortable, or at least three of them can feel comfortable in creating this program. And that's, because he's not opposed to it at all. And I don't think any of them are, because it is a good program. They just want to see it. They're not in the habit of approving things kind of with blank check, carte blanche sort of approval.
Sure, but it also seemed like, the people who were supposed to run the program, there were going to be positions that were part of the approved appropriation for this, so they could hire the people, and theoretically those people would be the ones, writing out the full program, administrative rules and application forms and process documents and things like that. I don't know. I guess it's sort of on McHale and Taylor's plate to figure that out, but that seems like sort of a chicken and an egg situation.
Well, and truthfully, Taylor sent a wonderful email. I can't remember if I forwarded it to all of you or not, but when he understood the concern that a few of the developers I was talking to in the small intimate circle were expressing, and at the core of their concerns was that there was no structure and a limited process and system. It needed to be further developed. At the same time, as I'm just mentioning, and thanks again, Chris, Chad Caggiolari is now on board after getting that follow-up from Taylor. Condor, I think, is in all of our communities. Ben Stebbins and the entire Stebbins family, huge investment entourage in the Seacoast. They are completely on board, and as I say, writing their individual letters. But the concern was there was just not enough substance to it, not enough framework, structure, and process. If I didn't send you that great letter, did all of you get that letter that Taylor sent me last week? I can send it to you. It was very good in terms of, did I send that last week to all of you?
I thought it might have been sort of on that when you forwarded it to me, I think that was the first time my work email and not my ZBA email that I check once every 2 years had actually gotten looped in.
Okay.
So I think I might have it, but if you could forward it.
I'll look, if it would be helpful to, it was, I thought, very good. I'd be happy to James, could I forward it to you? I don't yet have an email.
Yeah, absolutely.
With this. Okay, thank you. I'll dig it up, but it was very good. But, and it did for what it's worth. And like I said, I've been gone for a week now, but right before I left, Chad, as Chris is saying, Chad felt much better about it. But I think the executive counselors have the same concern. But again, I want to reiterate Summersworth's support on that, on a cooperative letter.
Do we know when that is scheduled to go back to executive
Wednesdays.
council?
Wednesday at 10. Yeah, we gotta get the letter out fast today.
Wednesday, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, James.
And you don't have to worry about editing the letter because Taylor saw it and we already did all that and he liked it exactly right.
Yeah,
So
it's good.
just send it out verbatim.
Okay. Then I will get that to the group ASAP, and whoever can either put in the chat that you want your name on it, or if you'd prefer to see it before you sign on, maybe send me an email by 2. And at 2 o'clock, I'll take who I've got and I'll push it out the door.
Thank you.
I have a question for Mikhail. If we're okay with jumping subjects.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just curious how much, when yesterday, and the call with Taylor yesterday, he talked about those 3 RFPs the BEA is putting out and, or whoever's putting out, the state. I'm just kind of curious what the, how much money's been allocated for that, for each or for all 3.
That is a good question. I don't know what the budgets are for those projects, but I can poke around.
Those are good projects, by the way, whoever thought that up.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Solid projects.
Yeah.
So what else are folks working on, or do you have going on in your communities? Anything exciting?
Can I talk a little bit about?
Go ahead, Warren.
So yeah, so SBDC has always a lot of exciting things going on. One of them is the Resiliency Academy. I'll put a link as to our homepage here, and you can look at anything you want. So the SBDC and the Cooperative Extension are in phase 2 of the Resiliency Academy. So it's going to be this spring starting, I think it's next month, to help businesses and community leaders develop resiliency planning. And we have a really great understanding now, getting through COVID, what resiliency planning, how necessary it is. And then we all saw the news this weekend and saw the fire up in North Conway. And that's the first thing that came to mind, quite frankly, for me, is what is their resiliency plan? It can be any kind of disaster. So the Red Jacket Inn is just one, it's a big example, but it's only one company out of thousands of companies throughout New Hampshire that should have resiliency planning. The other area that we're working on right now is the SBDC, New Hampshire SBDC Inclusivity Project. Like many organizations, we know we can do more to have our services be more welcoming, inclusive, and accessible to business owners of color. And we're getting extensive training we're getting extensive DEI training. So keep an eye on that. And then cybersecurity initiative, we have a cybersecurity workbook and webinars, and we have an e-course on cybersecurity and resources to help businesses repel and recover from cyber threats. And we're now offering free cybersecurity reviews with cybersecurity experts. So all these programs are free, paid for with taxpayer dollars, and they're all really excellent programs. The other thing I want to mention is that EIDL is sunsetting. So if you know of any businesses that the deadline to apply for EIDL loans was December 31st, 2021, but even reviews are sunsetting in a few weeks. So if you know of any businesses that have been back and forth with the SBA relative to their EIDL loans, they need to act on that. And if they have any questions, they or you could certainly contact one of us at the SBDC. This was a lifeline for many, many businesses, and I think the program really got a lot of small businesses that would not have had access to capital to get us through COVID. That's all I have. Well, one more, business basics. We have a business basics program for those that are in the beginning offerings, the beginning process of starting a business. And we should have something on the books for June. It's a 3-part program to teach businesses about business planning, marketing, and financial matters.
That's great. Warren, do you have like a 1-pager that kind of summarizes those projects? I would send them out to the businesses that as a.
Yeah, I am. I'm putting the link. Anybody who gets our newsletter, you should all be signed up to get our newsletter. I'm putting our website right on here in the chat, and you can access it. But our newsletter comes out probably once every 2 to 4 weeks, and all these programs are on those. So if you're not on the newsletter, go to our website and sign up for it.
Make sure to forward those.
At this, I just want to give a quick update on the COVID. I don't actually any borrowers, they have up until May 6th for the final request for an increase or reconsideration. So they have until May 6th. Any borrowers that's in the middle of the process, they get until May 16th. After May 16th, the funds are going to be run out. So it's no longer going to be around. And just give you an idea, in New Hampshire alone, we did over 11,000 loans for $1.17 billion on the economic injury disaster loan.
Thank you,
Teresa,
Miguel.
you have your hand up.
I was going to chime in. I don't know if there's anybody else who wants to chime in. I'm a new town administrator. I've been in New Durham for about a year now, actually, as of next week. And so we are a very small town. We have 2,700 people. We just officially, Yahoo, got a full-time building inspector, which has been great. And he has been energetic in helping us get a technical review committee started. So we're starting to have businesses turn around and be interested in wanting to stay in New Durham. But one of the biggest issues that we have is our zoning. We only have 2% of our small town as commercial zoning. So everything else is residential. So if anybody has any tips of the trade, we do not have enough funds for an economic developer or planner in New Durham. So I'm trying to be the TA and the building inspector who can do it all in our little town. But if anybody has any suggestions, we're trying to be more open to small businesses, and we do have some people coming forward and looking into the technical review committee with us, which is great. But it's been a slow moving process. So again, any kind of, I'm joining these chats now because they were sent to me about a couple months ago. So I'm just trying to learn from all of you and what you're saying and try to catch on as you go. But if anybody's close to New Durham, I know I saw Mike over in Rochester. And I know someone I saw from Somersworth. So if there's anybody who's close or nearby that's interested in connecting, I would be so happy to connect with you. So just letting you know.
Well, Nicole,
Yeah.
part of that 100 million investment in New Hampshire is for communities like you to update your zoning regs.
And I was trying to catch on to what you guys were talking about at the time. So I asked James if he could email me that information because I'd be interested in learning more.
Yeah,
Good luck
I'll
and welcome.
definitely connect that to you. Some of it, again, that it seems like at least the focus of those programs was in part housing. But we'll definitely take a look if there was a way. Taylor has talked about basically the equivalent of the Plan New Hampshire Municipal Technical Assistance grants, where you can use that to bring in a consultant. I'm sure we at the Planning Commission would love to talk to you about, either what we might be able to accomplish under dues or under our existing EDA funding versus, what we could scope together if and when those grants are available, and see how we might be able to group some things or approach your codes. Other things, do you know how old your master plan is?
I want to say that it was finalized in 2016 was the last time that we had an update in our master plan. And I know they don't need to be updated all the time. Our planning board has done a good job trying to follow it as much as they possibly can. Our select board has not as much so. So there's definitely still things on the to-do list. But one of our biggest issues we have is, like a lot of communities that are older and smaller, is that we need facilities updates. We have an old facility for our town hall, our fire station, our police station, but there's just no way for us to even look at building without having a bigger business base to be able to work on that.
Yeah, I'd definitely be happy to connect with you, further to talk through, what's in your master plan, what has sort of been put forward as the vision for where do we want economic development, what kind of economic development. If it was kind of quiet on all of those issues, then, it would also be something to think about as to whether you want an economic development chapter or addendum to that as a way to sort of give some backup to any programs or rezoning that you're doing going forward. I also think that this summer is a great time to start talking about that, especially with the planning board, if you are considering zoning map amendments, because the town meeting cycle for zoning amendments always sneaks up faster than you expect it to.
Yeah, we brought in legal actually last week to kind of have a good sit down with our planning and zoning board and our building inspector to kind of talk about, what is each person's responsibility, because we've kind of had them going back and forth into the admin roles and kind of crossing lanes. So we did have a good legal meeting last week to get things rolling and get things started. And the last technical review committee did start talking about zoning and locations that could have some business opportunity. So I think that we're moving in that direction. It's just, I think we almost need a good focused path so that we can follow it rather than go off into different directions. So
sure, that makes sense.
Good cross-functional teams. That's what we're looking for.
Yep. Yeah, and we have, I think, 4 municipal planning contracts at this point, where we provide what we call circuit rider services. So, if you're looking for like do other people have technical review committee, rules of procedure, processes? How do they structure those committees, or how do they function? I can send a message internally and we can see if we can get you some examples or things like that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool. Teresa Walker.
James, I was just going to share that tomorrow at the REDC, the Regional Economic Development Center in Raymond, we're hosting a workshop for anyone on our resiliency plan guidebook that we developed. And Darren is one of the speakers. He'll be talking about some of the things, the great work that he's done over the past couple of years to support businesses during the pandemic. And we'll be joined by Dan Chartrand from Water Street Bookstore and Tony Calandrello from Vino e Vivo Restaurant, both Main Street businesses in Exeter, to talk about kind of lessons learned and share information there. So we'll also quickly review what I'd already shared with all of you, which is the resiliency plan toolkit that we developed for municipalities and small businesses.
And that
Thank
is
you.
part of your SEDS meeting, right?
Yeah,
That's
it's a
basically the same event.
Yep, our SEDS meeting tomorrow is at 12 and this workshop will start at 1, and it's an in-person session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good to know. Thanks for the invite. Others with stuff going on?
If I could jump in, James, at some point, it doesn't have to be today, but I wonder if we could block out a couple minutes to talk about website options. As I prepare to leave, I find myself doing some proposed reorganization structure charts and all of that. And I've complained to all of you, and all of you have been so helpful to me. The challenge here of not obtaining tenant contact information and only owner contact information, which I don't really work with the owners, I work with the tenants. And so I keep thinking one of the software options may be able to remedy that challenge of not having that information. And I'd like to inevitably propose software options to the office. So maybe at some point we could kind of talk about how people manage their contact information and if they're using a software program that they like or don't like. That'd be great.
Okay.
And we're hosting a forum at Exeter City Hall at Friday at 9 o'clock, discussing workforce housing. We invited all the legislators in our area. Unfortunately, it conflicts with one of their meetings, so some of them won't be able to make it, but a lot of them will. And anybody who wants to come, it's being catered. Chris Parker is one of the featured speakers. Eric Chinberg is, Taylor is, and a couple businesses in the area. So that's at 9 on Friday at Exeter City Hall, if you're interested.
I got my Speedo ready, so feel free to come.
Robin, did you say you're leaving?
Yes, I resigned January. I didn't tell you, Warren. I'm
No.
sorry. Shoot, I'm sorry. I resigned January 1st for December 30th because things move slow in City Hall. And
Okay.
yeah, so I hope my last week of December will be my last week.
You mean you didn't give 2 years notice?
I know, really. That might have been more helpful. But it's funny, even with so much time, I'm thinking about, I hope I can leave so many structural systems, at least outline plans behind too. That right now they're saying they're not going to replace me with another economic development person. They're looking at a second planner, a technical support person for the planning process. So that makes me worried in terms of what kinds of systems I can leave behind when there is a person to do this job.
Who's saying
It's
that?
incredible.
The town manager.
Huh?
Who's saying that they're not going to replace you with an economic developer? Is that the city manager? Is that the city councilors or whatever you call them?
The city manager wants to bring in a second planner. And, it's just I think the whole limited budget and trying to choose, but business growth here is so phenomenally demanding right now. We had, I think I told you, 24 new businesses last year. We'll probably close this year with 26 new businesses. The truth is they need an economic development person and a second planner, but I don't know how they're gonna do what it is that I do. So I'm trying to leave infrastructure suggestions and org charts that could be considered in the fall for how these responsibilities will be overlaid in other positions. It's gonna be a lot.
Well, I join any effort into trying to change that
Yeah.
mind. And also, I'm sure a lot of your developers and a lot of your businesses would as well. Town managers can want one
Yeah,
thing,
I
but
bet
if it's
you're
bad, they can be stepped on.
You know what,
Yeah.
I'm really disturbed by the fact that they're not replacing the economic development position. And that, I mean, that's a trend that is not good. Durham did the same thing.
Trend, is it?
Well,
Don?
Durham did the same thing. Christine was not,
Oh, true.
was not replaced. And I had some discussions with Todd Selleck, the town manager, and, you know, I respectfully disagreed with him because I think you guys are the key to economic growth. You understand small businesses, you understand businesses in general, and not having that position, I think, will be a tremendous loss for Somersworth, especially now that you're on the road to something pretty big.
We're
You're
the
here.
relationship. We're not the government person and process person. We're the relationship with the city and the function of the city. So yeah, like I say, right now I'm kind of at the end of this first quarter, sort of shifting gears. I'm like I say, I find myself at the kitchen table at home already mapping proposed work charts. It's going to be a lot for everyone, and with this volume here in Somersworth, to me, I don't know if having 26 new businesses a year is a lot. For us, it's staggering, but every department here needs another person, and I do worry about everyone, and I worry about the businesses considering the community. So like I say, I'm already kind of starting on proposed transition plans. And this weekend, as I was thinking about it, mapping out a couple of work charts, I thought software could be one solution that could help enormously.
But yeah, and I agree. And Chris, is Dover going to get an economic development director?
Yes and no. So we've changed it. We're no longer the economic development department. We're a business development. We're looking at being more responsive to businesses as opposed to feeling the metrics that economic development purports. So that said, I propose that the position be filled in July, and the budget calls that it wouldn't be able to be filled until January because of the cost of the role. So you guys are stuck with me for another 6 months.
No, I think that's great, Chris, because we love you, but business development director, I think, is a good change in names, quite frankly. You know, Dover's pretty pretty developed. So helping small businesses and helping businesses around what their needs are and having that direct link is really important. I think that's a good change.
Yeah, I think what we've decided is that it's more important to be supportive and responsive to the business community as opposed to looking at unemployment rates and things of that nature, which we really can't directly affect. We can directly affect those businesses that need help, need assistance, need resources, and helping to provide those resources and act strategically in that role, as opposed to whining about numbers that we want to change but really can't. So the focus is going to be, as Robin sort of implied, more of a relationship building, more of a how do we help you be successful? Because if you're successful, then the community in general will be successful. So that said, feel free to apply anyone in January, except for Robin. I don't want women. You know.
Chris, you remember that these are being.
You are skating on thin ice, buddy.
So the best thing is that through my closed door, I can hear Reed laughing in the other room.
She's throwing daggers at your back. You're a bullseye. I'm sending her an email and tell her to aim carefully.
to James's point about this being recorded, I'm absolutely kidding. That said, I will switch gears for a second and say that we have a couple of projects here that are moving forward really well. Earlier this year, the city council authorized staff to enter into a development agreement, a public-private partnership for 180 acres of land on Littleworth Road, Route 9. We're moving forward, should have that wrapped up, I hope, next week or the week after. And the gist of it is that the city will participate in creating some public infrastructure, some roadways, some utilities, and some traffic signal coordination. And in exchange for that, we will get about 800,000 square feet of assembly and manufacturing and about 800 residential units in proximity, the goal being to provide employment and employees opportunity to live near each other. My understanding from the developer is that they have about 3 businesses ready to go, which is why they're ready to sign on. The gist of the deal is that the developer will pay for the infrastructure, the city will reimburse them for the infrastructure in exchange for 1.5 times the cost of the debt service in guaranteed assessed value generated revenue for the project. So for every $100 we spend, we get $150 in revenue to pay back the debt on that. So we're in the process of moving that forward. We do have, and I can't speak to the details right now, we do have conversations about what the mix of that 800 units will be as far as attainable housing or otherwise. And I hope at the next meeting I can tell you that we've come to an agreement. We are working on the percentage now. There will be a percentage, and that's part of the public-private partnership aspect, is that the city getting financially involved, we can then help dictate some of that that level as an incentive program. So we're working on that and just fleshing out. And ironically, the developer says they're open to the attainable level. Their concern is they don't want to become a bureaucracy of how to manage that. And that was their only concern with the Invest New Hampshire, was they're not used to maintaining and managing affordable housing, and they want to know how to do that because it's going to be part of their rental mix. And one of my concerns, or one of my caveats for the inclusion, is that it can't be one building out of multiple. It needs to be interspersed because we don't want to create segregated housing. It needs to be collectively part of the project and designed as part of the project, as opposed to an afterthought. So that's part of what we're still working on. And then the other project that I'll mention is it's an interesting one in the sense of how times change, right? Everyone was all happy in the late 90s, early aughts to have 300,000 square foot of Liberty Mutual office space on 6th Street. Well, now that Liberty Mutual only works in the office one day, and that is optional, we foresee them no longer needing that wonderful space. And they've already sold one of the buildings. But then there's an adjacent office park, a company called Measured Progress used to operate. And then A, they got to work from home, and then B, now they're out of Atlanta, Georgia instead of Dover, New Hampshire. So we are working with a developer that's looking at taking the 200,000 square feet that they have and making a mixed use commercial residential project there with they're looking at both some manufacturing, but also recognizing that there are no services or restaurant opportunities in that area, and it's along the Chico River, so it has a nice amenity package that could come there. So we're working with a development team on that. They nicely came in and said they wanted 220 residential units and a token gym and coffee shop, to which I described that did not meet the mixed use intent, and to go back to the drawing board. And after some grumbling, their attorney said, no, actually, he's right. That's how we should have read his ordinance. So working on that, which will be a cool project. Both, I think, would have a 5 to 10 year build out, but would certainly help towards vacancy rate issues that we're seeing.
Chris, when you mentioned people being concerned about, or you're hesitant about managing the affordable units, was there a particular aspect, like were they concerned about the income verification and those sorts of things, or even just where do we put the units, how do we keep track of the units?
So it was threefold. One was as you say, where do we put them, how do we keep track? The second was the income verification, and the third was if we lock a percentage in, they're concerned that they welcome person X, they income verify and they meet it, and then person X gets a raise or gets a different job and no longer meets the income guidelines. Are they now out of whack, and how do we plan on tracking that? The other thing they raised, which I thought was a great conversation to have, was their concern that we're too focused on rental and that we're not thinking about affordable home ownership. And so one of the things I'm working on is we would set the bar at X, say, and it won't be this number, but say 20% need to be affordable. What if we did a sliding scale that said, if it's all rental, it has to be 20, but if it's not all rental, if there's a portion that are for sale, then that percentage would go down, because the goal would be recognizing that having affordable for sale units builds a different sort of community and is more, it is really the missing market that we're seeing. You can find rental, and I'm not saying it's easy and I'm not saying it's cheap, but the for sale side is the side we don't see builders trying to attain. So when they raise that,
it's a huge issue to Chad.
Yep. Who may or may not be the developer I'm talking about. But
I mean, he brings that point up beautifully.
So
Sorry.
So I'm working on what percentage scale, because it'd be easier for both parties, I think, to be able to say these units are now deed restricted and they have to be conveyed through an affordable or attainable method, as opposed to doing the rental. So hoping over the next couple of days to find some time. It'd be easier if I had a development coordinator, but so
I was going to mention, I'm pretty sure when it comes to the income verification side that New Hampshire Housing offers that to small communities, small developers. So that might be part of the conversation, to see whether you can just say you need to go through them to income verify.
So the housing authority here in Dover, we've had that conversation with them doing the income verification as well. And so we're going to look at those couple options, but I didn't thought about New Hampshire Housing, which makes perfect sense. So I appreciate you raising that as a opportunity.
Yeah, because I recall Ben Frost talking about it a year or two ago, and all of the details that go into, well, if you're income verifying, then you need personal confidential information that for a small department or developer who's not used to handling that is a huge liability. So, I think they're justifiably concerned, but there could be some good opportunities. Sean?
Thanks, James. Hey, Chris, I just want to say I really appreciate this your concept of business development, because as a lot of you know, we don't have a lot of land here in Portsmouth to offer new employers, but it really does come down to retention and expansion, and in a lot of cases, even transformation, which is a big word, but all this working from home or working from anywhere or hybrid schedules or hybrid workplaces, I think just creates a lot of opportunity for existing businesses as well as others that we might want to attract. And the last piece I'll just say is Darren, thanks for your tip, and others on contacting the Secretary of State. I've got a quick response to send me a list of Portsmouth employers with addresses and emails. So our EDC is looking to launch a business retention expansion survey within the next 30 or 60 days. So that'll be really interesting to compare it to what it was pre-COVID or pre-pandemic and what the needs are today. So thanks, James.
Are you doing that solo or are you doing that with UNH, with Charlie?
UNH, we're paying for it.
Cool. They do a great job.
Yeah, no, we are.
Anything else for the group?
Sure. For Sean, was the last survey done when 2017 or before that?
I think it was 17.
Okay.
But you guys paid for the New Hampshire SBDC resiliency survey back in 2020 and 2021. So you have that data.
Yes, yes.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, we are coming up on 10 o'clock and we've covered a lot of ground. So thank you all. I have already sent out that letter for you to take a look at. So again, please reply by 2 o'clock so I can get that off to Executive Council. Otherwise, we will try and track down all of the various things that people said they were going to send and get them out with the notes. And I will see you all in 2 weeks.
Thanks, James.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everybody.
doing that, James.
Thank you. Thank